Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Happy Sunday, everyone. Happy Sunday. Listen, it's Sunday. We love to do some live streams. Now, usually when I'm doing a live stream, it's kind of like a live coaching session that I'm doing. But actually today it's probably maybe I'm the one who's actually going to be coached because I've got an amazing guest lined up for you from the Better Love Movement platform, Miss Anita. She is a therapist, does single, does couples therapy. She has a lot of great gems as well on her platform. She is very consistent uploading every day. So if you watch her and you're watching Anita, you already know we're about to have a dope conversation. And of course, you know me, I always love to bring value. So that's why I'm going to bring her on. So let me add her and let's get this party started. Anita.
Hello, how are you?
I am good. I'm good. How are you doing this Sunday?
I am awesome. It's been a pretty chill holiday weekend. Yeah, pretty
Oh, we
chill.
appreciate it. Is it bank
Yep.
holiday weekend where you are as well? It is here.
Yes, tomorrow's Memorial Day.
Oh, of course
Yep.
it is. Of course it
Yep.
is. Well, listen, I want to jump straight in, get into nitty gritty. We're here to
Mhm.
talk about why the dating scene is messed up right now. Hello, Pierre.
Mhm.
Thank you for joining us tonight. In your opinion, what's going on in the dating scene right now? Because a lot of people are kind of hating on it.
Well, as I always tell my ladies, to me, it's more about what they're not doing than what they're doing. And they're always
Okay.
coming to me and they want to know what to do. And I
Mm,
tend to teach women what not to do. That is
interesting.
my style. It's what you're not doing.
Okay, so do you find a lot of the correction is coming from maybe habits that they have that aren't serving them?
Mm, yep. Precisely.
Really? Okay, and do you primarily coach women or do you coach guys as well?
I have about 10% guys and 90% women.
Okay.
But you'd be surprised. Yeah, men are starting to come to me a little bit more and they're starting to, which I love. I'm
Mm,
really working on men being more vulnerable. Like they're really working on being more emotionally available and more vulnerable. So we
mm.
need that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Okay, so let's start with the women. So that's your main demographic, and mine as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
What's some of the most common things that you think that maybe they fall into that just really doesn't serve for the goal that they want?
Number one, I always tell women that when you're meeting someone or you're interacting with someone, yes, I want you to assess your level of attraction. I think that's important. Is there
Hmm.
a level of attraction? Is there chemistry? But the number two thing right behind that is he safe? Is he safe?
Mm.
Is he safe?
Yeah,
Like we're hearing horror stories now
yeah,
because women are not prioritizing, is this man safe? And I don't just
yeah,
mean physically safe. Is he emotionally safe? Is he spiritually, financially, verbally, mentally? Is he
yeah,
safe? Is he a
yeah,
safe man? So that's right behind, and I can determine rather quickly. If a man walks up to me, I can
yeah,
determine rather quickly, oh, hello, But once
yeah,
I have that, down, I'm immediately going to safety. I'm
yeah.
immediately vetting him for safety.
And what are some of the things you look for, you tell, your clients to look for in a man that he's let's start with emotionally safe, because I think that's probably I
Mhm,
think financially
mhm,
it's easier to tell, what kind of
mhm,
lifestyle
mhm.
he's living, all that stuff.
Right.
Physically, if he looks after himself. So emotionally, how can you tell if a guy's emotionally safe that he's going to take care of you in that sense?
So he's going to have four qualities. He's going to
Okay.
be open. He's going to be honest. He's going to be
Mm.
transparent. And he's going to be appropriately vulnerable. So we are
Mm.
assessing for those four things. And if anything is not aligning, like if words and actions are not aligning, you're going to call that out. You're going to say, hey, I've noticed you've said this, but we're doing this. And
Yeah.
something about that misalignment makes me feel unsafe. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
100%. And you know what? It's so funny because even the way, even the way you asked that question just now is
Yep.
complete. That makes all the difference as opposed to you're not
Mhm.
doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this.
Yep.
And I think that's actually really important because while maybe if guy may not be stepping up to play the way he said he would be, but
Mhm.
I think it's important to remember if you're gonna have a long-term relationship with anyone, there are gonna be times where,
Yeah,
they're not gonna
that's
show
right.
up in a way that you appreciate, et
That's
cetera.
right.
So how you address that makes all the difference.
It
You
does.
said something interesting that I really want to touch on, which is being appropriately vulnerable. What does that mean?
Right. Right. So we are going to give out vulnerability based on time, based on the nature of the relationship we're in. We want to assess for all those things. So, what I tell the ladies a lot is I want them to actually be less vulnerable. They will go to first dates and they will
Mm,
spill their guts all over the table. And I'm saying,
mm,
no, this person hasn't earned your story. Like, we don't need to
mm,
tell him all of that. Let's
yeah,
pace ourselves. And men can be quite the opposite. They will hold it in, hold on for as long as they can.
yeah.
So there's ways in which to be appropriately vulnerable. When I'm first meeting a person, I've known them for a few weeks, we've had a few phone calls or we've texted, he's
Mm.
still a stranger. He's still a
Yes.
stranger. He hasn't earned my story. He hasn't earned all the details of my life.
Mm.
But I can still be appropriately vulnerable with him
Yeah,
and
yeah,
see how he
100%.
responds. See how he responds to that.
Yeah, I completely agree. How does it come across to you as a woman if a guy shows up on a date and he's sharing his story, sharing all his
Mhm.
vulnerabilities? Like he's just, kind of I don't say exposing, but he is opening all of that up. Well, how does that come across?
Well, female nature says that that can make us unsafe, right?
Mm.
If a man is too vulnerable, that can
Yeah.
actually make us feel unsafe. So there is
Mm.
a balance that men have to strike. And I'm always
Yeah.
talking to men about that. Like you crying at every turn, like that's actually going to make us feel unsafe. We're
Yeah.
looking to you to, be a beacon of strength, to be a leader, and
Mm.
if you're questioning us, if you don't know what you're going to do and you're, like that can make us
Yeah.
unsafe. Right.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I try to say is that a lot of the time women want the man to be the mountain that her emotional waves can crash into.
That's right. That's right.
And it's not saying that guys, well, men are emotional, right? But a lot of the time
Mhm.
we're more prone to anger and aggression in comparison
Right.
to women a lot of the time. But I do think that there is a men kind of have to earn vulnerability with women in a
Mm,
sense that
mm,
if he's too vulnerable too soon, like you said, it can come across that he doesn't have his stuff together, he doesn't know how to regulate himself, and if he can't look after himself, how's he going to look after her and someone else? So I think maybe there has to be a level of emotional investment she already has,
right.
where him being vulnerable is an opportunity for closeness as opposed to
Mm,
seen as instability. Would you know what I
right.
mean?
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
well, let's talk about sex, because sex is a vulnerable aspect for women as well. And it's interesting because I feel so
Mm,
many more people nowadays are way easier being physically vulnerable
right.
than emotionally vulnerable. So like,
Exactly.
so what's going on there, especially on the women's side when it comes to their relationship with sex?
So, what I teach women is if we can't have a conversation, at least three, if we can't have three conversations with a man about sex, we shouldn't be having sex with him.
Interesting. What do you mean? When you say at least three conversations, what do you mean?
You're going to have three separate conversations about sex. The first
Right.
conversation is going to be about birth control, it's going to be about safety. It's going to be
Mm,
about the very practicalities of sex to make sure, because let's be honest, keep in mind, women
mm.
bear 90% of the negative consequences of sex.
Very true.
We have to protect ourselves.
Very,
And
very true.
that is what I'm always teaching women. If it goes
Yeah.
wrong, 90% of the time, you're going to bear the weight of it.
You're picking up the tab. Very,
Mhm.
very true. So what do you think about the current, narrative culture and this kind of treating sex very casually, hooking
Oh,
up, using sex to, gain certain advantages? What's your
right.
take on that?
Well, we're seeing from the psychological realm how devastating it is. Like the clinical research is finally coming back about hookup culture. And we're
Mm,
seeing that this epidemic we have of loneliness and anxiety and depression, a lot of this is coming out of this fake intimacy. So that
Yes.
is what casual sex is. It's fake intimacy. It's not real. And
Yeah.
so at the time, it feels close or it feels like, oh, I have this person's undivided attention. But
Mm.
it's what happens after that we don't talk enough about.
Yeah,
We have to
100%.
talk about that. Yep.
So when it comes to, let's say, a man having sex with a woman, let's say they have sex on the first day, what happens after, would you say?
I would say, 80% of the time, the man makes some inferences about her. Men
Mm,
do put women in buckets. They do put women in buckets in terms of what they're going to do with that woman moving forward.
mm,
And I just want women to be aware of that. If a woman is looking for something long term and stable,
mm,
she has to use long term mating strategies. Having sex on the
mm,
first night is a short term mating strategy. And so,
mm.
if you want a summer fling, if you want to go to another country and have a fling for 2 weeks while you're over there, great. But if
Yeah.
you're looking for something long term, if you're looking for something real and genuine,
Mm.
you want to use long term mating strategies.
100%. Pierre Tolliver says he loses interest if he has
Mm,
sex on the first day. And what I would say, I'd say that it's very common he loses long-term interest.
right,
But if he has, if he's like, okay, this is somebody who's a great casual option, then a lot of the
right.
time guys will keep her in his back pocket for when he's feeling frisky and
Right.
there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
And especially with that. So what would you say to the women who say, oh well, it shouldn't matter if I have sex with him really quickly, because if he likes me for me, then that shouldn't matter. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, again, I'm an evolutionary psychologist, I'm a relationship scientist. And
Mm,
so, what we do in real life is one thing, and what we see as patterns across hundreds of years is another.
yeah.
And that's the one thing that irritates me the most is that people are not using the data and the information that people have studied for hundreds of years. And
Mm,
and this is another thing that's gonna ruffle feathers, but people say, "Well, I'm an individual and we should be," that's what's gotten us here, is
yeah.
this idea that we're all so individualistic and so different. We really are not. We
Mm,
really are not. There is that bell curve, as I like to tell people, and you have the outliers, right? You have those outliers. Most
mm,
of us are in the middle. Most of us
mm,
are in that bell curve. And so, because of that, I can predict. I can predict because of relationship science what's going to happen. And I can
mm,
also teach you how to use relationship science to have it happen in your favor. So that's what
mm.
I teach women. Please listen to the science. If
Yeah.
you want this to go in your favor, do it like this.
Yes. Yeah, of course. What's the most common misconception you think women have about men dating today?
A lot of women, it's interesting to me because they do think that the number one reason why men today seek them out is sex. That a lot of women believe that men,
Mm,
they use women for sex. What I have seen happen, especially in the last 25 years, is men will utilize women for free therapy. So,
really?
yeah, so keep in mind, men
Interesting.
don't have the relationships with other guys, that women have.
Yes.
Men don't get a chance to be incredibly vulnerable or talk about hard things or talk about their past or their childhood. But
Yeah.
they do feel comfortable doing that with women. And they know that
Mm.
women eat that up. Like women love that.
Oh my gosh, he
So they're
shared with me. He told me about his dead uncle. Yeah.
But really, men, it's really clever because yes, they want sex at some point, but a lot of men, believe it or not, they want to express, they want to talk about these things, but there
Mm,
may still be a stigma about therapy. So
mm,
they will seek out women on dating apps or, they will go on dates and these dates will go nowhere, but they will have had that chance to express themselves. They'll have that chance to talk or message
mm.
and they're kind of getting a release too. That's like an
Wow.
emotional release, right?
Yeah. Wow. That's like that makes sense. I'd never considered
Mhm.
that. And I guess nowadays, especially because, it's like we're all connected online, but we feel more
Right.
isolated, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Everybody has, probably way more friends online than in real life as well.
Yep.
So there's
Yeah.
this illusion of having more connections,
Yeah.
but we actually, in terms of the actual real life stuff, which is actually what feeds the soul, if you will,
Right.
we're very much lacking that. And I hadn't thought guys are just like, I just want someone to talk
To
to.
talk to. They do.
Someone
Like, they
someone to
do.
talk to.
They
So
do.
what's a common misconception guys are having on women now today?
Depending on the age range of the man,
Mhm.
men do believe that women, like there is a type of guy he has to be to connect with a
Mm,
woman. He believes that height plays a factor, his money plays a factor.
mm,
They still believe that, right? That they have to have money or they have to be tall or they have to work out or whatever. When in reality, the average woman is looking for other things. She's looking for a measure of humor. She's
mm,
looking, to be honest, for men who are interested in her, men who ask questions, men who are emotionally available.
mm,
And I keep encouraging men, like, regardless of height, regardless of, if your fitness and regardless of your money, I
mm.
want you to find other ways to add value, and you'll be
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised the women that will think the most of you. Like, oh wow, that was a really thoughtful date. He asked a lot of questions, and
Mm,
he seemed very open, and we had good conversation. So men, the red pill is pushing men towards this alpha image,
mhm,
and most women, like, don't want that or need that.
mm,
There's a select amount of women that may want that, but
mm.
most women do not want that or need that.
Yeah, interesting. I hear that. Is there not still, because I completely agree in terms of bringing the humor, level of intelligence, inquiring
Mhm.
about her, I do think many guys can make the mistake of, okay, well, as long as I'm tall, in shape, and I've got money, she shouldn't need anything else from me, right?
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
not a relationship. You're just filling the requirements of a position. That's not a
Right.
relationship, right?
Right.
But I do think, and tell me what your thoughts are, there is an element of the things that you said about being funny, all this stuff. In order for her to see that, he has to get the opportunity first.
Mhm.
And I do think what he is gets the opportunity, and then who he is gets the relationship.
Mhm.
So, like, it's great if a guy is really funny, right? But if you can't even get on a date with a girl, what does it count for? So
Right.
is there not an element of a guy no, he does have to invest in those areas to get the opportunity first before he can show these things, or is that not the case?
It depends on how people are meeting and mating. So everyone who knows my platform knows this about me. I cannot stand dating apps. I would
Mm.
love to be at the charge of getting rid of them.
Yeah,
I think they're a dark triad man's playground. I have nothing
very
good to say about
true.
dating apps.
Yeah.
However, I think that men who are in communities, right? They're in communities. So here in Richmond, we have sports leagues. That's a big deal. We have breweries. That's a big deal.
Mm.
We have bowling leagues. We have karaoke groups. We have all of these different communities. We have a salsa community. So a
Mm.
man who is within a community, he's going to get a lot of opportunity to interact with women
To show
and
himself.
and
Very
over
true.
and over and over. So he's going to show who he is
Yes.
just being in proximity. And again,
Mm.
that's what science tells us, is that we will mate. 80% of us will mate with someone within proximity of us.
Yes.
Okay. So the dating app is making us believe that that person 3 states away is an option. They really are not. They
Mm.
are not a long-term option. We will mate. The last 3 men I dated,
Mm.
one of them was at the hospital where I was working at. One of them was my neighbor 2 doors down.
Okay.
These are the people that we're more likely to date and mate with. because
Yes.
it's the proximity, it's the seeing the person over and over, it's the having shared friends in common or acquaintances in common and other
Mm.
people talking about them. Like that's what's real. But the
Mm.
online, the Instagram, the dating app, it's kind of a fantasy, and it's a fantasy that's playing out texting,
Yeah.
FaceTiming or, talking on the phone, and people actually think they're building something and you're not.
Yeah.
You're really
Yeah.
not building anything.
Yeah. And
So,
100% you're right in saying that
yeah,
dating apps is the playground for the dark triad males for
it
sure.
is.
Because it
It is.
definitely it it feeds it and indulges in
Mhm,
the dark side of ourselves that
it
seeks
does.
fulfilling that self-indulgence, really, for
Right.
sure. What
Right.
is
And
the
think
what
about it.
is
People
you
are
know,
doing things online that they would never do in person.
100%
Right?
so
I
true.
had a gentleman that I said, "Hey, this eggplant pic that you sent me, would you stand in front of me and pull it out?"
Big
And he was
facts.
like, "Well, of course you would not. So please
Yeah.
refrain from doing that. Like we would not be out
Yeah.
on a date and you pull it out." And
Yeah.
well, no. Okay, then why are you doing it in this manner? Like,
Mm.
yeah, I keep encouraging women. We have to call some of these behaviors out. This is
Yeah.
wildly inappropriate because it's
Yeah.
not something you would do in person.
Yeah, 100%. Also, as well, on when girls say like, "Oh, he sent me a dick pic and stuff," I always
Mhm.
think, I'm like, when has that ever worked? Like, has that ever worked? Like, I
Never
don't get
worked.
I don't get when guys are like, "Oh, I'm gonna send her a dick pic and this is gonna make her
But
lose her mind."
I've got to share the psychology though. I
Go
shared
for
this
it.
with my platform as to why they're doing this. And women
Yeah,
were
tell me.
like, "Oh, that makes so much sense." Here's the
Okay.
psychology. So men are visual. They fall in love with their eyes. So that's
Mm.
their first impression of a woman. Oh, she's captured my gaze, and she's, oh, something about her is just very good to look at. Something about her just sets me on fire. So they're
Yeah.
very visual. Women, on the other hand, fall in love with our ears. So it's what a man tells us and his gift of gab and things of that
Mm.
nature.
Yes.
And because men are so visual, the female form, the nudity of the female form is very exciting. All
Very
right.
enticing, for sure.
Very. And women will always be the sexier sex.
It's
We
true.
will always be the sexier sex. There's just a
It's true.
mystery and a sensuality about our bodies, just everything about us is sexy,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So that's women. And so they're thinking to themselves, okay, if the visual turns me on, it must work for you. No, 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 no.
Mm.
It does not. And
Yes.
that's where men, to me, have to learn more about women. It is
Yes.
really so perfect example. A man I just met the other day, he called me, and just hearing his voice on the phone, I was like, "Oh, this is very
Okay.
exciting." And the things he said and what our conversation that did it for me.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't see his face, we weren't on FaceTime, I just was auditorially listening, and I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, this man's voice is amazing, and the things he's saying is amazing." That excites me. But had
Yes.
he just sent some words and then sent the eggplant pic, I would have been like, "What?"
What's going on here? This isn't what
Yeah,
I signed up for.
right.
100%. So what is the woman's equivalent where a woman will maybe do something because she knows it attracts her, but maybe it doesn't attract a guy in the same way? Is there like an equivalent?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think all their words, women love words,
Mm.
and men not so much. But I think
Mm.
a woman's words, she thinks that means something to a man, and
Mm.
it just does not land, right?
Yeah.
Men are about the doing. So what I would say to a woman, so I tell my couples this all the time, that this is what the man wants from the woman. He wants her to look at him with, give him sexy eye contact.
Mm.
He wants her to just walk over to him quietly and
Mm.
touch him or embrace him,
Mm.
or that he wants the doing. He doesn't want all the talking.
So
But
yeah, that's
get
so true.
talking. Okay, where there's and he was like it doesn't land, but the
Yeah.
doing that lands,
A
right?
100%. And that really just plays into like that scenario you just gave an example of. That really plays into like being just a place of peace. My
Yes.
goodness, that is so valuable to a guy. One thing that
Yeah.
come up that just came to mind actually that I think might be a good equivalent as well is when sometimes a woman, if she's really successful, she leads with her success because she
Yep.
thinks that's going to attract the guy because maybe that's what attracts her.
Nope.
But unless the guy's looking to you to kind of provide and be a leadership, it's just that's he's kind of that's like it's like a bonus. It's like I respect you as a professional for it, but that's not going to make
Right.
me want to kind of take care of you in that sense.
Precisely. Precisely. I want women to lead with what makes them feel good, what they're passionate
Mm,
about. I want women to lead with soft skills, things, like I adore, I'm going to the dog park after this. So I adored the dog park. That is my favorite
mm.
date in the whole world is
Yeah, yeah,
going to the dog park and seeing all the dogs and seeing my dog play and talking with all the dog owners. Like, that really lights me up.
yeah,
Um, I love to garden. I love gardening. I love nurturing things. I love to cook.
yeah.
Um, they want to experience that softer side of you, that nurturing side of you.
Mm,
Um, that's what really pulls a man in, and you listening and you giving him that space to express.
mm.
That kind of pulls a man in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I just want to mention some of the comments here. Pierre Tolliver, thanks for joining us. You're giving us a lot of good engagement here tonight. I just went
Mhm.
on a date and he told me his whole life story. It honestly was a turn off for me. It was too much too soon.
Yeah.
Very much plays into, it's not that guys shouldn't be vulnerable, but there's a level of investment that she should have in you
Right.
that then correlates to how vulnerable you are because then
Right.
that
Right.
change how it comes across. She also says dating apps are the worst for sure.
Ooh,
And hello Nancy Liz for joining us this evening. I wanted to touch on take a shift here, Anita, because I wanted to ask your opinion on something that's kind of going viral right now.
mhm.
This drizzle movement,
Oh,
have you seen this?
I have. I have. I
what
have.
what what's going on for those of us who don't know?
Mm.
What is a drizzle movement and what is it?
It is basically pushback. So Sprinkle Sprinkle is from Shira 7.
Mm,
And, I've, talked about her briefly because I don't want to be seen as a clout chaser. So I'm not building my platform off the backs of other people's platform.
mm,
But I have spoken at length about the transactional nature in which relationships are now rooted in. That it's all
mm.
about you do this, I do that. I give this, you give that. Like
Mm.
there is no reciprocity. There is no, quite frankly, a servant's heart,
There's no
right? When I
generosity anymore.
no, it's all this tit for
Yeah.
tat.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've encouraged, and this comes from my generation, is that we meet a person and really our goal is to win that person's heart. Like once
Mm.
we win that person's heart, everything else follows.
So true.
That's it. Once that
So
person
true.
adores us, once a man
Yeah.
is devoted to me, everything he has is mine. So
Yeah. So
it's
true.
like, I don't need to go for the wallet. Like, I'm
Mm.
actually going for his heart. And so she's teaching women to do the opposite, right?
Right.
Is we can't depend on love. We can't count on that. And we certainly can't count on unconditional love. So get what you can, get all you can, and make
Mm.
him pay for everything, every piece of your time, every sexual encounter or whatever. He's got to pay. And so
Yeah.
men are now, pushing back and they're saying
Mm.
the opposite of that. Yeah, don't pay for the date. Don't pick her up. Don't be a gentleman. Like
Yeah.
go in the opposite direction of that. And the danger in that is do they want to lose their masculinity? Like, do they want to
Mm.
lose, to me, the most important part of themselves? Their ability to lead, their ability to plan a date, their ability to be chivalrous. Do they want to lose that? Do they want to become the girl?
Well, yeah. They're like, you better take me out. Hashtag drizzle drizzle. You better
Yep.
buy me the bag, drizzle drizzle. Because I'm
Yep.
because I'm in my soft guy era now.
Right, right. But
That is
here's
so
what they're not being told.
go on.
That is not going to lead to their financial success. That's not going to lead to success in other areas.
No,
What
I think they
leads
know
to
that though.
success is the grit, the doing hard things.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I think you're absolutely right. It's definitely like it's definitely like a retaliation. I don't
yeah,
think guys are actually thinking women out here are gonna start paying for them.
right,
But I think the interesting thing though is that a lot of there's a lot of heat from women of the drizzle movement, and obviously
right,
guys they're kind of laughing because they're like, we're basically saying the same thing you are, and you're getting annoyed at us, and they're kind of doing it tongue in cheek, pretending to be serious. This is why
right,
some women are so outraged.
right.
Why are women so outraged if it's something that they say to each other? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's because, we need to keep in mind that men and women are different, right? And so there are things that women are going to do that men won't do and shouldn't do.
Mm,
There are things that
mm,
men are going to do that women shouldn't do. So
yeah.
that's kind of where I want to drive us back to. I want to drive us back to a place where it's okay to be different,
Mm,
right? And we understand that there's things women do, there's things men do, and
yeah.
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
We are perfect complements of one another. But women see it as, men being envious of them, or I guess men being trying to be more like them. And
Mm.
they feel a way about that. But I want to bring us back to a place where we celebrate masculine men, we celebrate feminine women.
Amen.
We're different. There's things we do and we do them differently. And we
Yeah.
don't have to be exactly the same. No.
Y yeah, 100%. So speaking of kind of, bringing back that level of polarity in a relationship,
Yes.
etcetera.
Yes.
Obviously, back in the day, it was very much the man would be the provider, she would kind of look
Hmm.
after the home, etcetera. But obviously nowadays, if any like most households, for example, need 2 incomes. Like
Right.
most households use it. So if you're in a position, whether you're a man or woman, where you're in a position where you can work part-time because your spouse earns a lot, especially like if you're a
Hmm.
woman and the man earns that he can cover the entirety of it, that's a pretty luxurious position today,
Right. Right.
especially if you live in a major city, right? So
Hmm.
is it is it still reasonable for women to expect the man to provide to that degree?
I think if we're being real, like if we're looking at the numbers,
Mhm.
um, two things would have to happen. One, a woman's lifestyle may have to go down to the level where the man could support it.
Mm,
I myself was married, married to a prominent doctor. We
mm,
had an agreement prior to being married that I would stay at home, I would take care of the home and him and our children. And that's exactly what I did for 12 years. And we prepared for that life. We prepared for that life. I
mm.
prepared for that life. So
Yeah,
prior to marrying him, I was a school teacher. So I worked full time as a school teacher. I lived on my own and paid all my own bills.
yeah,
And I got my hair done. I got my nails done, just like ladies do.
yeah.
But I met him as a med student, and then he was in residency, and then he progressively made more money, and so he let me know, like, this is what I make, this is the lifestyle we have to live within until it goes up and up and up. And
Mm,
so my question to women is, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that?
mm,
Are you willing to live within his means? I actually believe there's lots of options, and we're not exploring those options. We're either
mm.
saying he pays all the bills or two people work. There's lots of things in between that we're not talking about.
Very
Now,
true.
because I am an advocate for children, I
Mm,
always have been and I always will be.
mm,
I want to do what's in the best interest of the children. That's my number
mm,
one priority when people come together.
mm.
Let's do what benefits them. Because can I be real with you?
Go
If
for it,
we
please.
took care of our kids better, we wouldn't have the crap we're dealing with now.
Big facts. Big
Okay? Like we're
facts.
trying to, yeah, deal with it on the back end
Yeah.
when we need to take better care of kids on the front end.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. So kind of on that, because I think at least from guy this is my anecdotal experience, but it's at least from guys in my circle, my
Mhm.
male friends, etc. And I get there's a level of selection bias because like born and raised here, but I come from Nigerian background, which is quite
Okay.
traditional in that sense. So that's
Yeah,
what we're
yeah.
used to. But I think a lot of guys, they would love to be, they would love to take care of a woman in that sense. Like, I think a
Mhm.
lot of guys would love to, if there's a woman that they want, they'd be like, look, if I can provide a life for you where you can choose to work or part time and I can provide the space for you to blossom into the woman you want to be. Many guys
Mhm.
truly today would definitely do that. I think because of what we see
Mm.
online, the level of animosity between the sexes, and then if we talk about marriage and divorce, I think a lot of guys
Yeah,
have a serious lack of trust that a woman will
right,
stay by his side once he gives her what she wants.
right,
So to
right.
those men who are feeling that, how would you say, how is it a cultural thing in terms of the kind of, people this society is breeding out? Is it that he needs to know how to choose the right woman he can do that with, who is
Mhm.
going to stay by his side? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, vetting is for everyone. That's one
Mm,
of the things I gained the most male clientele when I put out my videos on vetting and how men need to vet. And they
mm,
were like, "No one ever told me this. No one ever talked to me about this. What does it look like? What
yeah.
does a good woman look like?" And they started
Mm,
coming in for coaching, and I started teaching them how to vet women. But everyone needs
mm,
to be vetted, and so that's what I would tell him. You're going
okay.
to have to very carefully vet that woman. You're going to, I gave the top two things they're going to vet a woman for. Number one is emotional stability and regulation. And number
Mm,
two is loyalty and virtue.
mm.
Those two things will tell you a lot about a woman.
I concur heavily.
Mhm.
So in terms of, the uh emotional regulation,
Right.
because, and this is I'm using male talk in the circles, and
Mhm.
a guy being a woman's emotional tampon, as sometimes
Right.
they will say, which is
Yep.
essentially a way of just a guy being there for her in the friend zone emotionally, and he wants her, but she's not choosing him, but she's using him for
Mhm.
emotional comfort.
Right.
Um, how can a guy recognize when a woman is worth the pursuit, in a sense of that it's going to be reciprocated? Because I think a lot of guys fall into the trap of, she's so gorgeous, she's so hot, and I'll just try, if I just stay here, then maybe eventually she'll pick me. Do you know what I mean? How can guys
Right.
recognize like reciprocation could be there?
Yeah, but I'm always telling men we're never hiding our sexuality. That's the part that I have to work with men on. They're hiding their sexuality. They're pretending that there is not, a sexual interest there. But there is a
Mm,
way that a man can let a woman know, hey, I'm interested in all of you, all the parts of
mm,
you. I'm interested in your brain and your heart and your body and all the parts of you. But yes, I would like to see this go somewhere. And don't hide your sexuality. Don't play the nice guy. Don't try to be the friend who's there at every turn with every breakup. No, I'm
mm,
interested in you. I'd like
yeah,
for us to, get to know each other better in all areas.
yeah,
And if she says, "Well, no, I don't see you that way." Okay, and then I would fall back, I would fall all the way back, and say, "Yep, now I'm going to turn my attention to someone else." And however she feels about that is how, well, you're not interested in me in that way.
that's it.
So,
I 100%. And there's one thing I always say, sometimes I think guys can be like, "Oh, she put me in the friend zone. I've been there for her, blah blah blah, all of this stuff." And I'm like,
mhm,
"Well, the truth is, bro, if you were in that friend zone for X amount of time, it's
yep,
because you accepted being
yeah,
in that position."
that's it.
Do you know what I
That's
mean? If you came
yep,
to her saying, "I want to be in this position," she's like, "Hey, this is the only one that's available for you.
that's
You take
it.
it or leave it," right? And I
Yep,
guess the equivalent would be, the kind of friends with benefit zone that
right,
women are in with
right.
guys. There's this whole thing, they're in a situationship, they're having
Yep,
sex, being intimate. It's like, this guy won't commit to me, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, look, he said this is the position that is
that he has.
available, and you
That's
took
right.
it.
That's
Do you know what I
it.
mean? Speaking of that situation, is there a way a woman can turn things around if let's say she's been casually sleeping with a guy for like 5 months and she really wants it to get to the next stage, etc.? is there a way she can turn it around? Does she have to kind of cut things off straight away, come back? Like, what can she do in that situation?
So one of the things that I'm known for saying is the only way a woman can change a man is to leave him. Like, that's it.
100%.
That's your only
I say the
option.
same thing. It's so true.
So either he's going to self-reflect, he's going to come to himself,
Mm,
or he's going to say, "Okay, I'm good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it." But that's
Yeah.
my power as a woman is, and I do it with dignity. I don't do it
Mm,
in high emotions. I don't use a lot of words, but in
mm,
dignity I say, "Oh, unfortunately, this doesn't work for me anymore.
yeah.
And it's been great getting to know you, and I really like you, and I want this to go somewhere, but I see that's not where it's headed. So I'm going
Yeah.
to protect myself. I'm going to do what's best for me, and I'm going to take some, time to myself. That's my way of letting a man know I'm going no contact. I say I'm going
Yeah.
to take some time to myself. So if you don't see me online, if you don't see me here or there, I'm just taking some time to myself. And then I go completely no contact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%.
a man makes that decision on his own. Right.
100%. I've
Yep.
some people disagree with me, but I've always operated that way in my adult life. If I've
Yep.
taken an interest, and
Yep.
if she wasn't reciprocated, I'm like, "Ah, cool. I love you and leave you with love, but
Yep.
I'm on my merry way."
That's right.
What would you say to maybe the women who say, "Well, if he can't just be friends with me, then that's because he's lacking emotional maturity." What would you say with that?
There are men out there that I can't just be friends with. And, when we have
Mm,
strong feelings for people, when we think about it like this, it's almost like downgrading. Like, I never let a man downgrade me. I never
mm,
let a man demote me, right? So if I was
mm,
once your girlfriend, I'm not gonna be demoted to your friend. Or if I was
mm.
once your wife, I'm not gonna be demoted. Like, I go up or out. I
Yes.
don't go down.
I go up or out. Someone needs to put
That's
that
it.
on a t-shirt.
That's it. I
I
don't go back down. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Take a little shift here. Do you ever work on attachment styles?
I do. So my latest video on YouTube is doing great numbers. I talked all
Okay.
about the avoidant man,
Hmm.
and there's two types: the dismissive avoidant and the fearful avoidant.
Mm.
And so many comments. Oh my God, this is exactly what I'm going through. This is exactly what I'm dealing with. So my next video is all about anxious preoccupied. So I'm going to talk about
Okay.
that. Yep.
Interesting, interesting. Well, let's touch on the avoidant. Let's touch on that because I think a lot of women deal with avoidant men.
They do.
The first thing I want to ask is, what is the difference between a guy who has an avoidant attachment style and a guy who's
Mhm.
just not into you? What's the difference?
So the avoidant attachment style man, he may actually kind of come on strong. He may pursue initially.
Mm,
And the truth is, he is into you until you're into him, or he is into you until his emotions get triggered,
mm,
until he feels trapped, or until he feels, oh my gosh, my fears are going higher than my feelings. So my fears
mm,
of being trapped, my fears of this getting really serious, and now all my other options are gone. When
mm,
those fears get activated. So in the initial, it's all about feelings. It's all about the
mm.
feelings, and you're great, you're wonderful. But
Yeah.
once those fears get activated and they go higher than the feelings, that's when he's going to deactivate.
Okay.
Whereas I believe a guy who's just not into you,
Mhm.
he may bait a woman. He may bait a woman because, men love female validation. They love female attention. And
True.
yes, if the relationship can become sexual, yes, he will take those benefits.
Yeah.
However, this is one of the things I often tell women to be mindful of what happens in between your interactions. So, what happens in between the phone call? What happens in
Mhm.
between the date? That is the
Mm.
determining factor.
Yeah.
So if it's a great date and then nothing, I'm like, okay, and then we have another great date and then there's nothing. Or we have this
Mm.
3-hour phone call and then there's nothing. Like,
Yes.
pay attention to that.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, how does he invest where there isn't an opportunity for intimacy?
Right.
Because that's how men show
Yep.
their investment with their,
They
with their
do.
non-sexual investment. Um, When it comes to avoidant attachment styles, is that we do hear that a lot from guys being avoidant. How
Mhm.
are more does being avoidant tend to be more of a guy thing and being the anxious attachment more of a woman thing, or like in your experience, what's that?
It is, and that's what we're seeing. The numbers are showing us that men culturally are being taught to repress their emotions. Men culturally
Mm,
are being taught to be the strong, silent type. So
mm,
yes, that follows the culture. Whereas women are culturally taught to be the nice girl and to be pliable and to be available and what do you need? And I'm here to serve you and meet your needs. So
mm,
that is how that plays out. We are seeing more avoidant women, and I have talked about that. We're seeing more narcissistic women, and I have talked about
mm.
that. So
Interesting.
we're seeing
Y-
the tables kind of turn in the other direction.
Yeah,
We have anxious men. We have
of
men
course.
who, if they have mom wounds or dad wounds, that are very anxious, very people pleasing. So we do
Mm.
see anxious men as well.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I definitely want to touch on that, but let me just go through some of the comments. Thank you for everyone
Mhm.
tuning in. We are having absolute golden nuggets from Anita, talking about dating today. Let's go through some of these comments. Some of you guys are tuning in, which we love that. M says, this is so interesting, great convo. Yes, I agree with Kit. I would love to look after women. Very true. A lot of men would
Mm,
love to look after women. He just feels
yeah,
has to be able to trust her in order to do that.
yeah.
Pia, I 100% agree. Quotes, the only way to change a man is to leave him. Someone get that on a t-shirt. 100%. I completely agree with that. Let's see. Sex should not be casual. It's
Mhm,
intimate into mating. Interesting. I
mhm.
remember, Esther Perel.
Yes, I love her.
And yeah, she's great. Read both her books, I think twice. She's awesome. And one thing when she says intimacy, she's like, into
Yeah,
me, see,
see,
you see.
yeah,
And I thought that
yeah,
was a fantastic way of putting it. And that's, in sex being casual, I think that's kind of messing a lot of us up. SL, welcome. Sunday nights, we always stay sick with Kit.
yeah.
Absolute loyal supporter. Appreciate you. Let's talk about, so you said you touched on that some women are becoming more avoidant. You said
Mm,
becoming, operating in a more
yeah,
narcissistic manner.
yep.
Why is this starting to happen? What's happened that this is starting to now happen in women?
It's the trauma, you know. So many, again, we're going back to the children. So many children did not have emotionally attuned parents, or they had
Mm,
parents who were narcissistic. They had parents who were addicted. They had parents who worked a lot.
yeah.
And these children are not being seen, they're not being heard. Those parents aren't showing up to their ball games or to their concerts, or, they're not attuning to their children. And children will respond in one of two ways. They will think to themselves, okay, well, I don't matter. I don't matter.
Mm,
I need to meet my own needs. I can't rely on other people. I just need to, put myself first and think of
yeah.
number one and make sure that I get what I need. That's how I'm going to get my needs met. I've got to be selfish. I've got to be entitled and believe, yeah, you owe me. You owe me.
Because they almost believe no one will do that for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I got to make it happen. I got to put my needs first all the time, and I've got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Or you have kids who fawn or who people please. Like, okay, I'm going to give and I'm going to do, and maybe you'll see my worth and value, and maybe I'll get a little something. And the breadcrumbs, okay, I'll take that. That's a little something. It may not be, all that I need, but it's
Mm,
something.
yeah.
So it usually goes one of those two ways.
Yeah.
And all of these people are in the insecure attachment pool, right? So
Mm,
those two pools, the secure attachment pool, the insecure attachment pool, it's rare that those two pools intersect.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of insecurely attached people dating other insecurely attached people.
Yeah, very, very true, very true. So speaking of that, let's now touch on the anxious attachment style, which you said is
Mm,
more common in women. What
right.
were some of the signs that maybe someone might be anxiously attached?
And so they tend to be really good outside of relationships. They tend to have their lives in order. They tend to do great at work, and their friendships are really great. But there's
Mm,
something about the intimate relationship that once it starts, it pricks on those early childhood wounds. It pricks on those caregiver wounds. So whether
Mm,
those wounds are abandonment, whether those
mm,
wounds are not being seen, not being heard, not being emotionally attuned to, and there's like a neediness, like I didn't get this when I was coming up, or I really wasn't prioritized. And so, when my intimate partner comes along, I've got to overfunction. I've got to make them see me and make them hear me. And that's the way. That's the way I'm going to get love has to be earned. That's the way I'm going
mm,
to get the love I really want. And so they
mm.
lean in, and if they're with someone with that person leans out like, oh,
Yeah,
and that dance, that cycle starts up.
100%. It's like the more
Yeah.
they try and get close, the more the other one's like, "Well, you need to chill," and that just makes it worse. It makes it worse.
Right.
What's if so? Let's say you have two people in a relationship, and let's say on anxious. Let's say one's secure, and
Mhm.
one has an anxious attachment. How would that how would that manifest itself in a relationship? Like, what does that look like?
So the secure person provides a good, strong base. One
Mm,
of the things about people who are secure is they're great communicators and they're great at managing conflict. So they're going to
mm,
call out things, right? They're going to call out things. That's what I do. If I
yeah,
met a man and within the first day, he texts 8 times, I will kind of, okay, and then the next day he texts 12 times.
right.
At that point, I will probably acknowledge, hey, I'm a therapist, I'm in session, I'm not able to respond as quickly as other people
Mm,
to text messages. So, you continuing to send text messages, I want you to understand, how my profession works. So, I'm
yeah.
going to have that conversation. And
Mm,
then I'm just going to address, like, yeah, this is the best time for us to talk. This is when I'm most responsive, but secure people will communicate. They'll also
mm,
communicate with avoidance. They'll notice
mm,
when they shift, they'll notice when that person is pulled away, and they'll say, hey, I've noticed, you're not calling as much, or we're not getting together as much. Like, help me to understand that. Like, what's going on? And if he
yeah.
says, well, I just need space, I just need space. Okay, great. Do you know for how long? Like, do you know
Mm,
for how long you might need space? Like, we're going to communicate. We're
100%.
going to do our best to get clarity,
Yes.
right? For either situation, we just want to understand what's going on. Like, hey, can
Yeah.
you just tell me what's going on here? Like, what's going on with you? And hopefully, that's a good backdrop for that person to acknowledge their anxiousness or their avoidance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just feeling a little pressure. Okay, no
Yes.
problem. See, or I don't know, I just feel like, you don't like me as much as I like you. No, that's not the case at all. See, and we can give reassurance to the anxious person, and
Yes.
we can give compassion to the avoidant person. Like, hey, I get it.
Yeah,
So,
very true. And I think
yeah,
that the reassurance, I think,
yes,
is like comes up so much for people
yes,
because every time we see something that we don't understand or doesn't align with what we think's going on, we always go worst case scenario. We
right.
always go worst case. It's never, oh, they didn't text back because they're like, they're just getting me something as a secret for my birthday, which I've been in that
Right.
situation before
Yep.
with my girl. She thought I was up to no good, and I was buying her a surprise gift. I was like, babe,
Yep.
chill. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Interesting. I feel like I've grilled you, asked you a bunch of questions. Is there something you
Yeah.
want to ask or bring to conversation?
I would. So, as a male dating coach,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about the mind of the modern day man. I'm really curious because, I see a lot of different things across the board. I
Mm,
see guys that they get it. There's a level of emotional intelligence, and I see guys doing good work and they
yes.
get it. And then I still see guys that are struggling. They're
Mm,
really struggling with showing up for women in a very regulated, strong way. So it's just like you said about being the mountain to let the waves crash up on.
yeah.
And so I'm just curious about that. What are you seeing in terms of men? Because I'm sure you have guy friends. Like, what are
Yeah.
you seeing in terms of, how they are managing themselves? Are they doing work? Are men
Mm,
doing work of their own?
yeah.
I'd
No.
be
Very.
curious.
Yeah. 100%. So again, I'll probably say there's a level of selection bias with my friends because we're all quite similar. I think I'm quite emotionally intelligent. We have these
Okay.
conversations, etc. But seeing men on a whole, I think there's two really important things that I think is contributing to this. One, we have to acknowledge the lack of strong masculine leadership that a lot of
Yep.
young
Yep.
boys have. And I think what happens is when a young boy he grows up without a strong masculine role model, it means that he is taking cues from the mother.
Yes.
And while men and women are equal, we are different. And
Yeah.
because of that, there are certain scenarios and situations as a man, I have to move differently than a
Mhm.
woman because the world treats us differently in certain situations. Right. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's fair, but that's how it is. So, like a
Yeah.
classic example might be something like, you know, I know that no matter how emotional or angry or frustrated I get, I have to be able to not lash out physically because I'm probably I'm 6'2", right? So I'm bigger
Yep.
and stronger than the average woman. Do
Yep.
you know what I mean? Whereas while it's never okay for them to put anyone's hands on anyone, the consequences realistically for women are less dire, and she's going to do less damage, right? And I think what can happen is when a young boy is growing up without a strong masculine figure, what he sees is that if he sees his mother kind of lashing out when she's emotional,
Right.
he thinks, oh, when I'm emotional, it's
Yep.
okay to lash out. And while that's generally not the case, we as men
Mhm.
have to be much stricter with ourselves and more
Right.
self-disciplined because we're more capable physically.
Yep.
And something that Steve Harvey said, he said, an undisciplined boy, there's only two paths he goes down. That's either he ends up dead or he ends up in jail.
Mm.
See what
Mm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
I also think the second thing, and this part comes down to the kind of narrative I think guys see from women, and bless them, because guys do struggle. A lot of guys struggle, so they're kind of like looking for women, like, tell me what it is that you want. What should I become, right?
Right.
And because I think a lot of the time men see women saying like, oh, I want someone who's nice, I want someone who's vulnerable. Why can't guys emotionally connect? All of this stuff. That's what they lead with.
Okay.
And you know how we say, I think it was Pierre who literally said in a comment that, she went on a date with a guy, told me his whole life story, and for me it was a turn off.
No.
And it just doesn't work. So
Mhm.
I think it's definitely becoming more, in a sense, guys are starting to have these conversations with other
Good.
guys. I've noticed that with my circle of friends that we've started to have certain conversations emotionally that we've never had
Mm.
before.
Okay.
But I think there's a lot of guys, a lot of this generation feel like they lack guidance, especially strong master guidance,
Yeah.
which is part of
Yeah.
the reason
I
why
agree.
Andrew Tate became so big.
Yeah.
It's not because most guys are like him, it's because
Mhm.
like the fact that he became big
Yeah.
reflects how much of a big hole there was, or there
Yep.
is, in
Yep.
society, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then, as if I don't know if you know, but most the Pareto principle is very much the case, especially kind of in dating,
Yep.
where 20% of guys are getting the majority of women, at least on dating
Yep.
apps, etc. And
Mhm.
so a lot of guys are like, okay, well, if being nice and being responsible and being emotionally vulnerable, if me doing that work isn't getting me the result that I want, then I'm going to focus on these more surface level tangible areas, and that's when they think, right, well, as soon as I do that, then I'm golden. And obviously
Yeah.
that's not the case, because there's a difference being with a girl and a woman. A girl, that might be fine for, but a woman, that's not going to be enough for her.
No. And here's what
Mhm.
I've noticed. I was watching Chris Williamson's podcast. He was talking to Hamza, and
Mm,
he was talking about the authenticity. Like, there has to be a balance
yeah.
of, being a great man, right, in a lot of areas, and being authentic. Like, make
Mm,
sure you're not putting on a persona. Because
yes.
here's what's going to happen. And I've talked about this on my platform, and I've told men this, that
Mm,
you can put on that persona and it will get a girl, but when the real you shows up, it won't keep the girl, because in her
100%.
mind, this is not the guy I want. I
Right.
don't want the Star Wars Trekkie or whatever, like, I want, the clothes or the hair or the trips or the car or the whatever.
Yeah.
But when the real you shows up, because not many men can maintain that forever,
Yeah.
that's when you're going to lose the girl. And
100%.
there has to be a balance. So I tend to lead with, like, most people who know me, they say, "Oh, it's so exhausting being one way at work and one way at home." I don't do that. Like, I am the same
Mm,
person. I'm the same person on podcasts. I'm the same person in the therapy office. I'm the same
mm,
person on YouTube. I'm a little louder on
mm.
YouTube, but I am the same person. Like, I'm committed to authenticity,
Yeah,
right? And sometimes it offends. Like, sometimes it offends. And
yeah,
I even step into that. Like, okay, I'm not your person,
yeah,
but I am committed to being authentic. And
yes.
yet I can still put my best foot forward, right? I
Mm,
can still make sure I'm showing up looking good, smelling sweet. I'm
yeah,
not going to show up looking messy, but I
yeah,
want to lead with who I really am because that's what's easiest for me to be.
yeah,
And so
100%.
that's my thing with guys and the persona
Yeah.
is I dated a guy like that. He had a persona and I thought it was darling. And then,
Mm,
6 months in, he was exhausted. He was
yeah,
like, "I can't keep this up.
yeah,
I can't, this is me." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Like, this is a bait and switch. Like,
yeah,
okay, like, can you just be you?
yeah,
Just be you." And
100%.
now here's the thing, when I say that though, men say, "Well, I tried that, it didn't work," or, "The women don't want me." Be
Mm,
the best you. Be the best you
mm,
you can be. So
yeah,
yes, I do want you to read or listen to podcasts, and I do want you to go to the gym. I want you to be fit and healthy. I want you to be around other women that you're not interested in and talk
yeah,
to them and get comfortable. Like, stop pedestalizing women. Get comfortable talking to women.
yeah,
Be the best you you can be. Don't be the
yeah,
sloppy version of you. Be the best you.
yeah,
Right. So
100%.
that's
And yeah, and I think it's really important as well to differentiate between like having a persona that's not you and
yeah,
then showing like a version of you that you want to give to this situation, because obviously who we are with our best friend is different than who we are with our
right.
mom, is different than who we are with our children, etc. It's still you, but depending on
Yeah.
the situation who you're with, you are, you're like, okay, me showing love in this situation, this is bringing this side of me. And I think
Yes. Yeah.
and I think part of the reason why it seems that guys can a lot of guys may feel like they're lacking in the emotional awareness, intelligence, and the character growth for a relationship is because it's so difficult for many men to get into a relationship. A relationship is
Mm.
almost like a training ground to
Mm.
see where elements of your character needs work.
It is. No, I
So
agree
then
with
when
that.
you exactly right, because all the time it's usually in our intimate relationships that the things we need work on, that's when they come up because the
Yeah,
stakes are
that
so
mirror.
high. The
Mirror.
mirror, right?
Mm. Mm.
and and so because I think a lot of guys struggle to get into the relationship, it's like, well, they don't know where they need to work on because they
Right.
can't find this, they can't get into a relationship. I was just say, Pierre Tolliver says, as a secure woman, it baffles me that a man will say he needs space and you give it to him and he gets mad that you gave him space. Help me understand. Interesting.
Mm.
What do you think about that, Anita? What does that mean before I tackle that?
Mm. It depends on how much space you gave him. But again, that's why I'm always asking, I ask questions. I always ask clarifying questions. You need
Mhm,
space? Okay. What does that look like? How long?
mhm.
And
Yeah.
I ask questions for clarification.
Mhm,
And okay, I can do that. And you know what? You reach out, you let me know when you want to reconnect.
mm,
And that's it. That's what the
yeah.
secure person does. They over communicate.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
truth is, avoidant people are horrible communicators. They are afraid to
Mm,
say a lot of things. So they're not going to communicate. They won't communicate their needs. They won't communicate what they want. There's a
mm,
lot of fear around that. And then anxious people, they do tend to communicate, but that communication style. So kind of like what you said, where it's like, you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm not getting this. I'm not getting that. Like
yes.
it's very combative. So
Yes.
that's where I would say anxious folks need to work on is just ask more questions, less
Mhm,
assumptions, try to get clarity. Hey, and
mm,
and then express a need. Hey, I really need a little reassurance. We've gone all day without talking with each other, and I'm just feeling really disconnected. See? So just
mm.
ask for what you need. Like,
Yeah,
what are you
100%.
doing? I know you're up to something and you're not doing this and you're not doing that. Like, no.
God
It's
damn,
not gonna
I was reading my sister a book. What the hell?
not
So
gonna
funny.
make me want to do that.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And one thing I always say, the feminine inspires the masculine to move.
hmm
They
Yep.
say, some of the greatest leaders in history were taken down because of a woman.
Oh, yep. Yep. The
So when
power, the
so
feminine
the power,
power.
honestly, and so it's like if you can, and not in a manipulative way, but literally, like you said, the way you do it, it's like that's using your feminine to inspire him to
Yes.
give you and fulfill the need that you want. Because especially if a guy cares about you, when you say,
hmm
"Hey, I really appreciate it when you do this," he's gonna go, "Well, I'm gonna fucking do that
Yep.
because I know
Yep.
that's gonna give me brownie points. I know that's gonna make you feel loved. It's gonna make you feel seen."
hmm
What do you think is something women struggle to ask from men?
That is a good question. I think one thing that women struggle with in terms of knowing how to influence and use their feminine power is men are
Mm,
wired for positive reinforcement, and
yes.
women tend to use negative reinforcement. And that does not work with men. It's the positive
Mm,
reinforcement. It's catching him doing the right thing. It's showing your appreciation and
mm,
using words and your actions, to show, "Oh my gosh, I came home and the grass was cut and it looks amazing. Thank
mm,
you so much." When I came home, my son had blown off the deck and blown off, the patio. I said, "Oh,
yeah,
someone's done a fabulous job at blowing off the deck." So I know that, like, catch them doing the right thing. And
yeah,
I wish women did that more
yeah.
because them, catching them doing the wrong thing is
They're all
just, it
over that.
does
and
not work.
and it's funny. Jordan Peterson said this, and I think it's so true for a lot of guys' experience. I'd even say this in my experience as well. Um, Men, we are not often praised.
You
We
know,
are not often, like, at least growing up, like a lot of the time we get praised when we're an adult and we've achieved, etc., etc.,
Mhm.
and that's great. But kind of in the little things, like it's not often
Yeah,
that we're praised for doing it, and it really doesn't. It doesn't take that much to encourage a guy. It
doesn't.
really,
No,
really, it really doesn't. It doesn't. Um,
doesn't.
this,
One of
yeah,
the
go on.
greatest compliments I tell women that they can give a man is, let's
Mm,
say you go out on a date. It could be a first date, it could be a 100th date.
mm,
But if you have a good time, if he is chivalrous, if he is a gentleman, before you leave that date, you need to verbalize how safe you felt,
mm.
how taken care of you felt. Like,
Mm,
"Oh, I felt so special. I felt so cherished. I felt so taken care of." Like, that's it.
yeah.
You have a man forever. And even
Honestly.
I can tell you, even relationships that didn't work out, men will tell me about that exact instance when I said that. "Yeah, I remember we went on that date and you said how safe you felt," and how they never forget it. They never
Yeah.
forget it. So I keep telling women, like, yes, say that.
Yeah.
Say how what a great job, what a great restaurant, what a great
Mm,
event, or what a great thing that you all did, and how safe you felt, and how,
yeah.
"Oh, this was just," I mean, he will just dream of that for the rest of the night. Like, "Oh,
Honestly, honestly, that's at times that's better than sex. I can't even lie.
it really
That's better
is.
than sex for a guy,
It
for a guy's
really
psyche.
is." Like, wow. Because
And
like you said, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen for them.
mm,
So I
yeah,
want women to do that more. Like,
yeah.
really appreciate the detail, or, "Yeah, this was a great meal. This was a great restaurant you picked." You know,
Mm,
they need that. Men need that so much. But
yeah.
again, the tactics that I give women, or the strategy, it's really about winning a man's heart. So
Mm,
that's the thing I'm always teaching women. I want you to
yeah.
win his heart, because once you have that,
You have
everything else, once you have his devotion, everything else will follow.
it is
That's
it
it.
is it is so true, and I can say from my own anecdotal experience, especially those who know me, like going out on a date, I've always been raised that, it's good. I'll always pay. I want her to offer,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But my girlfriend would say this when when the few times I've been with a woman where she's done that,
Mhm.
right? It's made me want to do more. Like,
Right.
it's it's
Right.
it's a it's a weird male psyche hack.
Yep.
Like, I can't
Yep.
explain it. Like, when a woman says, "Oh, you made me feel safe, and I really appreciate you
Mhm.
did this," I'm like, "Well, you're not ready for next week." Like,
Yep.
because, I've
That's it.
planned A, B, and C. And
Yep.
I think for a lot of women, I think sometimes, and you can tell me what you think, I think they worry that if they say this, it's giving him permission to do the bare minimum. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, "Oh, thank you for making me feel safe." It's like, "Oh, well, that's the bare minimum." Like, you should. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to do more to
Yeah.
impress me. And I think, in my opinion, I think for a man who has a low level of self-worth, that will work.
Right.
But a
Yeah.
man who
Yep.
doesn't, he'll just think,
Yeah.
"This woman doesn't have a level of gratitude that I need
Right.
to do more for her." Do
That's
you know what I
right.
mean?
And you just gave away, and that has been my experience. That men that I am vulnerable with, men that I
Mm,
share, you did an amazing job. This is an amazing place. You made me feel safe. You made me feel secure. You took care of the plans or where we were going to park. Like
mm.
they will give me everything. They will
Yeah,
give me everything just for me doing that. So, like you said, it's going to work in the opposite way.
in the
And
opposite
women
way.
have got to be more vulnerable. Women
Yeah.
have got to be more appropriately vulnerable. They've got to be willing to share, hey, I'm a little nervous. I always tell women,
Mm.
like, if you're nervous, say, hey, I'm a little nervous on this date. It's been a while since I've been on a date. How about you?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
be
100%.
vulnerable. That's it. And
Yeah.
I definitely, tell women not to drink on the first date. I'm like, do not drink if you're nervous.
Yes.
Try to be sober minded, but use that as an opportunity to be vulnerable. Like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah,
a little nervous right now. I haven't been on a date in a while. And, I was excited, to come and meet you and get to know you. What about you?"
yeah,
And see how he responds to that. You wanna see what
100%.
his response is to that, but that's how I weed out avoidance. I am I'm vulnerable, and if
Yeah,
they withdraw, I'm like, "Absolutely not." Like,
yeah,
this man, yeah, that scares him. That
yeah,
vulnerability scares him,
and
right.
I was literally about to say as well, like, because sometimes I completely understand this. For a woman, it might be, "Oh, but what if he reacts badly?" I don't wanna feel rejected by that vulnerability,
Yep,
and it's like, that's part of how you vet a man to see if he's the guy
exactly.
for you.
That's
Is
right.
there risk in it? 100%
100%.
there's risk in it,
Yeah,
but that's part of the vetting process. You can't
it
not do that
is.
part.
Yep,
Because then you don't know if you can trust him, if you feel safe with him. You don't know if he can lead and take care of you in that sense. Do you know what I
that's
mean?
right.
Um, Listen, Anita, I'm gonna stop taking some of your time. We've been here for an hour. We could chat for
Yes,
another hour for sure.
yes,
However, guys, Anita is making her way to the grey shores of London in
yep, in
August. So
August.
I'm 100% gonna get her on the podcast. Definitely want to pick your brain and definitely extend this conversation. But I really
Yeah.
appreciate you for coming on. If people want to
Thank
find
you
you,
so
where
much.
can they find you?
So my platform is called Better Love Movement, and it is that everywhere. So on
Mm,
Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, my website is betterlovemovement.com. It
mm.
is Better Love Movement everywhere you go. And right now, I'm growing my YouTube channel, so I'm super excited about that. I will
Yeah.
be back on Instagram June 1st. I took a little bit of a break
Mm.
to work with my YouTube mentor. And so I'll be back on Instagram, creating reels, creating content, having lives, and just having healthy conversations and trying to get people into healthy relationships.
100%. That's what we're here to do, baby. That's what we're here to do.
Yep.
Well, yeah, Anita, appreciate you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Guys, definitely go give her a follow, a like. She's got some great value in her content. You know me, I don't bring on
Thank you.
people who don't bring great value. Yeah, thank you for tuning in, guys. And if you're catching this after, I'll let you know when the live stream is, and you can definitely join us for the conversation. So thank you guys, and Anita, I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Cheers. Bye.